Well, everybody knows what day this is. It's a happy Friday, and it's a Friday not too far removed from a special holiday. And in light of that, we're going to be sharing some wonderful pieces of literature this afternoon. And I'm going to end with a visit from Toby, that hound dog from Bean County, Tennessee. But before we go to Bean County, we're going to go to across the pond. And our first piece of literature today is going to be A Visit from St. Nicholas. Down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. Oh, his eyes, how they twinkled! His dimples so merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and its smoke encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him, in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. Now he spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger to the side of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his teams, gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." Now, this was a rehearsal for me, because I'm going to be reading it again tonight, Saturday night, and Sunday, downtown Fernandina, at the wonderful festival we celebrate on an annual basis, called Dickens on Center. And now, for a slight change of pace, something from Dylan Thomas. This is from Prospect of the Sea. Toys and tangerines. Small boy. And then the presents. Self. And then the presents, after the Christmas box, and the cold postman with a nose on his button, rose on his button nose, tingled down the tea tray slithered run of the chilly glinting hill. He went in his ice-bound boots like a man on fishmonger's slabs. He wagged his little bag like a frozen camel's hump, dizzily turned the corner on one foot, and by God, he was gone. Small boy. Oh, get back to the presents. Self. Oh, there were useful presents, engulfing mufflers of the old coach days, and mittens made for giant sloths, zebra scarves of a substance like silky gum that could be tug-of-warred down to the goloshes, blinding tam-o'-shanters like patchwork's tea cozies, and bunnies-cutted busbies and balaclavas for victims of head-shrinking tribes. from aunts who always wore wool next to the skin. There were moustached and rasping vests that all made you wonder why the aunties had any skin left at all. And once I had a little crocheted nose bag from an aunt now, alas, no longer whinnying with us, and pictureless books in which small boys, though warned, with quotations, not to, would skate on Farmer George's pond, and did, and drowned, and books that told me everything about the wasp, except why. Small boy, oh, get on to the useless presents. Self. On Christmas Eve, I hung at the foot of my bed Bessie Bunter's black stockings, and always I said I would stay awake all the moonlit, snow-lit night to hear the roof-alighting reindeer and see the hollied boot descend through the soot. But soon the sand of the snow drifted into my eyes, and though I stared toward the fireplace and around the flickering room where the black sack-like stocking hung, I was asleep before the chimney trembled and the room was red and white with Christmas. But in the morning, though no snow melted on the bedroom floor, the stocking bulged and brimmed. Press it, it squeaked like a mouse in a box. It smelt of tangerine. A furry arm lolled over like the arm of a kangaroo out of its mother's belly. Squeeze it hard in the middle, and something squelched. Squeeze it again. Squelch again. Look out the frost-scribbled window on the great loneliness of the small hill. A blackbird was silent in the snow. Small boy, were there any sweets? Self. Well, of course there were sweets. It was the marshmallows that squelched. Hard-boiled toffee, fudge, and all sorts crunches, crack-knocked humbugs, glaciers, and marzipan, and butter Welsh for the Welsh, and troops of bright tin soldiers who, if they would not fight, could always run. And snakes and families and happy ladders and easy hobby games for little engineers complete with instructions. Oh, easy for Leonardo. And a whistle to make the dogs bark, to wake up the old man next door, to make him beat on the wall with a stick, to shake our pictures off the wall. And a packet of cigarettes. You put one in your mouth, and you stood at the corner of the street. Oh, and you waited for hours in vain for an old lady to scold you for smoking a cigarette. And then, with a smirk, you ate it. And last of all, in the toe of the stocking, 6pence, like a silver corn. And then downstairs for breakfast under the balloons. Some of you may remember A Child's Christmas in Wales. There was a candy cigarette moment in that story, too. You can tell it's definitely one of Dylan Thomas's favorites. And now, it just wouldn't be Christmas without Charles Dickens. And this little ditty is from Sketches by Boz, which was written by Charles Dickens. And it's called Happy, Happy Christmas. Ah, Christmas time. That man must be a misanthrope indeed, in whose breast something like a jovial feeling is not roused, in whose mind some pleasant associations are not awakened by the resurrection of Christmas. You know, there are people who will tell you that Christmas is not to them what it used to be, that each succeeding Christmas has found some cherished hope or happy prospect of the year before dimmed or passed away, that the present only serves to remind them of reduced circumstances and straitened incomes, of the feasts they once bestowed on hollow friends, and of the cold looks that meet them now in adversity and misfortune. Never heed such dismal reminiscences. There are few men who have lived long enough in the world who cannot call up such thoughts any day of the year. Then do not select the merriest of the 365 for your doleful recollections, but draw your chair nearer the blazing fire. Fill the glass and send round the song, and if your room be smaller than it was a dozen years ago, or if your glass be filled with reeking punch instead of sparkling wine, put a good face on the matter and empty it offhand and fill another and troll off the old ditty you used to sing, and thank God it's no worse. Who can be insensible to the outpourings of good feeling and the honest interchange of affectionate attachment which abound at this season of the year? Oh, a Christmas family party. We know nothing in nature more delightful. There seems a magic in the very name of Christmas. Petty jealousies and discords are forgotten. Social feelings are awakened in bosoms to which they have long been strangers, father and son, or brother and sister, who have met and passed with averted gaze or a look of cold recognition for months before, proffer and return the cordial embrace, and bury their past animosities in their present happiness. Kindly hearts that have yearned toward each other but have been withheld by false notions of pride and self-dignity are again reunited, and all is kindness and benevolence. Would that Christmas lasted the whole year through as it ought, and that the prejudices and passions which deform our better nature were never called into action among those with whom they should never, ever be strangers. Very thoughtful things for us to consider, I'd say. Oh, and this one. Now, one of my favorite books was Kenneth Grahame's Wind in the Willows. I knew all those characters as if they were my best friends when I was growing up. And this is from The Wind in the Willows, a brief section called A Seasonable Sight. There were many characters in that. And this one is, at last the rat succeeded in decoying him to the table and had just got seriously to work with the sardine opener when sounds were heard from the forecourt without, sounds like scufflings of small feet in the gravel, and a confused murmur of tiny voices, while broken sentences reached them. Now, all in a line. Hold the lantern up a bit. Tommy, now clear your throat first. No coughing after I say 1, 2, 3. Oh, where's young Bill? Here, come on, do. We're all awaiting. What's up? Inquired the rat, pausing in his labours. I think it must be field mice, replied the mole, with a touch of pride in his manner. They go round carol singing regularly at this time of the year. They're quite an institution in these parts, and they never pass me over. They come to Mole End last of all, and I used to give them hot drinks. Oh, and supper, too, sometimes, when I could afford it. It will be like old times to hear them again. Oh, let's have a look at them, cried the rat, jumping up and running to the door. Oh, it was a pretty sight, and a seasonable one that met their eyes when they flung the door open. In the forecourt, lit by the dim rays of the horn lantern, some 8 or 10 little field mice stood in a semicircle, red worsted comforters round their throats, their forepaws thrust deep into their pockets, their feet jiggling for warmth. With bright, beady eyes, they glanced shyly at each other, sniggering a little, sniffing and applying coat sleeves a good deal. As the door opened, one of the older ones that carried the lantern was just saying, "Now then, 1, 2, 3. And forthwith their shrill little voices uprose in the air, singing one of the old-time carols that their forefathers composed in fields that were fallow and held by frost, or when snow-bound in chimney corners and handed down to be sung in the miry streets to lamp-lit windows at Yule time. And now I hear a distant bark over the horizon, which must indicate the arrival of my friend and yours, Toby. Now, this is Toby in the Christmas Pageant. The good folks of Bean County decided, ever for the first snowflake fell, that they was going to organize the best Christmas pageant that there ever was. Everybody got all excited, and soon volunteers sprouted up faster than a slew of turnips in a cabbage patch. Now, Pastor Johnson said he would get members of his congregation to spruce up the old church and get to fixing a little corral where they could build what he called a creche. But with most other people, they just called it a manger. Miss Evelyn Good said she was going to get her 2nd grade Sunday school class to sing holiday songs to add to the festive spirit of the season, what most everybody could sing along with and enjoy. Now, Delbert Wilson, Emery Hollins, and Elroy Jones pitched in to say, now they would dress up like the 3 wise men and stand round the manger with some livestock. They even brought in bales of hay along with lots of extra straw. Now, the only fly in the ointment came when old Pappy Butterworth wanted to participate. He wanted to dress up in his Santa Claus suit and ride on the back of the old Bean County fire truck while throwing out candies and goodies for the young ones. Well, Sure enough, Lester Bedwell, over at the rescue squad, being his usual humbug self, claimed that Pappy needed a permit and threatened to rain on his parade in the twinkling of an eye. Oh, that turned into a big ruckus, what turned him into the Grinch, what nobody could abide. Now, in the meantime, every other busybody commenced to spending their goodwill fixing up the church with red bows and garland. Everywhere else, they was stringing up lots of bright-colored lights to celebrate the pageant. Over at the VFW Hall, retired General Pettigrew Porter agreed to use the old 1918 Model 24 field artillery piece to fire a one-gun salute to Santa, if and when he was ever allowed to proceed on his fire apparatus. Now, come Christmas Eve night, all their hard work and patient waiting seemed to pay off. The prickly permit issue finally got side-tabled on account of input from the state senator August P. Collinwood. He worked his influence with the rescue squad for the permit by promising to donate funds for new deluxe charcoal grill, which everybody could use when there wasn't no fires and such. Now, folks piled in around and all over the churchyard as they listened to Pastor Johnson read the nativity story. Then he told everybody, young and old, to keep an eye out for a certain jolly old elf who was fast on his way. You see, he said, after old Santy flies all the way down to Bean County from the North Pole, his reindeer need to take a little rest. Now, don't you worry none, though the cause, while them reindeer are out in the old pasture, old Santy's going to be coming on by the back of the fire truck with special treats for everybody. Now, that was just about the time Jasper Johnson, now he no relation to the preacher, pulled up with Toby. Now, any other time, Jasper and Toby would have been rounded up like two fugitives from a chain gang and escorted out of town. Now, this being Christmas, though, Sheriff Barlow done gave them amnesty to attend the pageant while there was still some peace on earth to be had. Miss Evelyn's choir had just started singing their first carol, Santa Claus is coming to town, when over at the VFW, that old cannon fired off unexpectedly, nearly scared everybody half to death. Now, being his usually persnickety self, Jasper Johnson couldn't help but giggle, pointed up in the air and said, "Oh, look it up yonder. I think they done shot Santa clear out of the sky." Well, now that was too much for them little second graders to bear the thought of. They commenced to crying and caterwauling something terrible. Now, at the same time, Toby noticed the wise men over in the corral. Now, Delbert Wilson didn't have no camel livestock, so he used his brother-in-law's llama instead. Elmer Hollins used his milk cow, Elsie, which, when that cannon shot off, spooked her into kicking him in the leg real bad. He fell over, knocking down the angels on high. What was guiding them all, all them wise men? Well, just then, Toby jumped in the corral trying to help, but he just scared Elroy Jones' billy goats what was guarding the manger. They kicked and butted the corral down, commenced to stampede every which way out of control. Now that's when, in all the commotion, Elroy tripped over Shepherd's crook, what knocked loose his guiding flame candle. Just like that, whole manger scene caught on fire brighter than a shining star. Now, thanks to Jasper and Toby, however, they managed to snap up the little old Lord Jesus from his crib, and, oh, boy, they saved him just in the nick of time. Right then, Pappy Butterworth pulled up on his fire truck, still throwing out goodies with the lights flashing and the siren honking. Realizing there was a genuine calamity going on, the fire hose elves real quick jumped out, saved the rest of the manger from burning clean down. Now, later on, everybody said what they really used to put out the fire. Well, that was holy water. The Pastor Johnson let out a few glory hallelujahs, proclaimed the whole thing a Christmas gift from heaven. Then he asked everybody to open their hearts and sing Silent Night together. Later on that night, somewhere the stars twinkled above and the angels on high sang softly. Good folks of Bean County went to bed, counting their blessings. Nobody ever knew where it come from, but over at the rescue squad that same night, a brand new shiny charcoal barbecue grill wrapped in festive red and green bow ribbons appeared. And all through the night, long after the baby Jesus had been safely placed back in his manger, Toby lay by his side, protecting him with unwavering resolve and devotion. Jasper Johnson said he never saw nothing like it before in his whole life. It was truly a Christmas miracle. And now we will start preparing for next Friday's Christmas miracle. Have a good weekend, and do come down to Center Street and visit with the Victorian festivities in downtown Fernandina.